Right now, somewhere in the world, a person is lighting something on fire just so they can breathe it in. They know it might kill them. They do it anyway. And the strangest part isn't that they can't stop. It's that this exact behavior is older than farming, older than writing, older than civilization itself. We didn't invent smoking. We inherited it. Picture a fire 50,000 years ago. The sun is gone. There's no screen to stare at, no voice in your pocket, nothing but the flames and the thick smoke curling straight into your face. And at some point, one of your ancestors sat in that smoke, felt something shift in their head and thought, what if I did that on purpose? That single thought might be one of the oldest decisions our species ever made. And to understand why, we have to take this habit apart, piece by piece, and trace it back to the very beginning. Because by the end of this, you'll see that smoking was never really about tobacco. It was about something buried so deep in the human brain that we were always going to find it. The only question was when. Let's start with the one thing you need before you can smoke anything: fire. Humans have been sitting around fires for an almost unimaginable length of time. The oldest solid evidence of a controlled fire, not a wildfire, but one deliberately kept and used, comes from a cave in South Africa, and it's roughly 1 million years old. Burnt ash, charred bone, inside a cave, kept going on purpose. And here's the part that stops you. 1 million years ago, we weren't even our own species yet. That was an earlier human ancestor, with a smaller brain and a heavier brow, sitting in the dark, doing exactly what you'd do, staying warm, cooking, huddling close, and breathing smoke. Every single day, for hundreds of thousands of years, every human and pre-human who sat near a fire inhaled smoke. It wasn't a choice. It was just the air. It was the original air quality problem, and nobody had a way to check it. Smoke was simply part of being alive after dark. But not all of that smoke was harmless wood smoke. And this is where the story turns. When you burn a plant, you don't just get heat and ash. Depending on what's burning, you get a chemical cocktail. And some plants, when they burn, release compounds that talk directly to the human nervous system. Certain plants growing wild across Africa, Europe, and Asia carry chemicals that, once inhaled as smoke, change how you feel. Which means, almost certainly, some of our ancestors were getting high around the campfire completely by accident, and had absolutely no idea why they suddenly felt incredible. And here's the detail that makes it almost eerie. The human brain already has receptors built to respond to some of these compounds. They didn't evolve because of any plant. They're part of a system that quietly regulates your mood, your memory, your appetite. But because those receptors exist, the first time a human breathed in smoke from the right burning plant, their brain didn't get confused. Their brain recognized it. It was less, "What is this?" and more, "Oh, there you are." Think about what that means. The entire global tobacco industry, all the rituals, the ceremonies, the medicine, the bus stop cigarette breaks, all of it may trace back to a tired human sitting downwind of the wrong bush and having an unexpectedly amazing night. History is sometimes absurd in the most beautiful way. But we have to be careful here because ancient humans breathed smoke, and ancient humans grew plants specifically to smoke them, are two very different claims. So what does the hard evidence actually show? The oldest direct proof of someone deliberately burning cannabis to inhale it comes from a burial site high in the mountains of Central Asia, around 2,500 years ago. Excavators found wooden braziers with superheated stones and the residue of cannabis plants with unusually high potency. This wasn't the plant grown for rope or seeds. This was the strong stuff, placed carefully in a ritual burial. Deliberate, intentional, unmistakable. But that date hides a trap, and you need to see it. The absence of older evidence does not mean it didn't happen earlier. Stone tools survive for millions of years because stone is nearly indestructible. But a wooden pipe full of dried herbs, gone in a few centuries? A leather pouch of plant matter, dissolved back into the earth long before any archaeologist arrived. So when we say the oldest proof is 2,500 years old, what we really mean is That's the oldest proof that happened to survive. The behavior itself was almost certainly far, far older. And we have a witness. An ancient Greek historian, writing 2,500 years ago, described a nomadic people of the steppe who would build small enclosed tents, heat stones until they glowed, throw hemp onto them, sit inside breathing the smoke, and, in his words, howl with pleasure. For centuries, historians assumed he was exaggerating. Then archaeologists dug up those people's burial mounds and found exactly what he described: the braziers, the heated stones, the hemp residue. He wasn't exaggerating. If anything, he undersold it. Now let's talk about the plant most people actually picture when they hear the word smoking: tobacco. And tobacco has a twist because it only grew in the Americas. For most of human history, the rest of the world had never seen it. When European explorers reached the Caribbean, they watched, baffled, as local people walked around with small, glowing bundles, breathing in the smoke of dried leaves and letting it stream back out through their noses. The crew was confused. The crew also, within weeks, tried it themselves, because of course they did. But tobacco in the Americas was ancient, long before any Europeans saw it. And here's the part that matters most. It wasn't recreational. It was sacred. Tobacco lived inside healing rituals, inside ceremonies, inside agreements between tribes. Blowing smoke onto someone was a blessing. The smoke itself was treated as a living messenger, carrying prayers upward, carrying visions back down. A shaman who smoked wasn't taking a break. He was opening a door between worlds. And that reverence is the whole point. When something is sacred, you treat it with discipline. You don't chain smoke it on your lunch break. The idea of smoking as a casual, constant, everyday habit, something to do while waiting for a bus, is an almost entirely modern invention. For thousands of years, this was the opposite of casual. Now, let's push back even further to a discovery most people have never heard of. At a desert site in Utah, researchers found a fire pit around 12,000 years old with the seeds of a wild tobacco species concentrated inside it, not blown in by accident, but placed there. 12,000 years ago, thousands of years before any pipe or pot in the region, someone was already putting tobacco into a fire on purpose. And that raises a haunting question. If people were doing this in Utah 12,000 years ago, what was everyone else doing, all over the world, with their own local plants at the same time? Because the urge underneath all of this isn't American. It isn't tied to one plant or one place. It's human. And this is where a genuinely wild idea comes in, one taken seriously by serious researchers. Across nearly every human culture ever recorded, people have hunted for ways to alter their own consciousness. They've fermented drinks, eaten strange mushrooms, chewed leaves, breathed smoke. It's so universal, so stubborn, so independent across cultures that some scientists argue it isn't an accident at all. One researcher proposed that the pursuit of altered states is a fourth drive, sitting right alongside hunger, thirst, and sex, and not just in humans. Elephants seek out fermented fruit. Reindeer in Siberia eat hallucinogenic mushrooms. The drive to change your own mind appears to run right through the animal world. And if that drive really is this deep and this old, then it's completely reasonable that early humans, long before farming, long before pottery, long before any tool we associate with smoking, were deliberately breathing smoke from certain plants because they'd learned, through raw experience, that it changed something inside them. They'd have learned which smoke made you feel good, and which smoke made you feel like you were dying. A lesson that, with some plants, kills you once before you learn it. Prehistoric trial and error. Very high stakes, sometimes fatal. But the ones who survived remembered, and they passed it down. Not in books, not in schools, but mouth to ear, around a fire, in the dark. That's how almost all human knowledge worked for almost all of human history. There's another thread here that almost nobody talks about: smoke as medicine. Long before it was recreational or spiritual, breathing smoke may have been a treatment. One of the oldest medical documents in the world, from ancient Egypt, describes inhaling the smoke of heated herbs, specifically for problems with the throat and lungs, which sounds insane to us. You treated lung problems by breathing smoke? Yes. And the strange thing is, some of those specific herbs do have real effects when inhaled. Ancient Greek medicine used therapeutic smoke. Ancient Indian medicine described smoke drinking, inhaling medicinal herbs through pipes with detailed plants, conditions, and preparations. This wasn't improvised. It was a refined system. The logic wasn't even crazy. Smoke reaches the lungs directly, so if a plant has medicine in it, smoke delivers it fast. We still use that exact idea today: inhalers, anesthetic gases, nebulizers. The delivery method survived. The burning part, thankfully, mostly didn't. And there's one more reason this behavior stuck. It bonded us. Humans survived in groups. Isolated individuals died, groups lived. So anything that deepened trust between people had real survival value. And shared rituals, including breathing the same smoke together and entering an altered state as a group, are one of the most powerful bonding tools we have. Modern science backs this up. Shared rituals literally synchronize people's brains and deepen group trust in measurable ways. So when a group sat together in a closed space, breathing in smoke, slipping into the same altered state, that wasn't just a party. That was social technology. That was how you built the kind of trust that let people walk into danger together and come back alive. Which brings us to the dark turn in this story, the part that should feel uncomfortable. For thousands of years, smoke was sacred, measured, ritual. Then it became a product. When tobacco hit Europe, it spread with terrifying speed. From exotic curiosity to continental obsession in a few decades. Snuff for the aristocracy, cigars everywhere, and then the industrial cigarette. Cheaper, more convenient, and more addictive than anything before it. What had taken people thousands of years to wrap in ritual and reverence was turned into a mass-market product in a few centuries. And then the industry spent decades hiding the evidence its own scientists had found, that it caused
The map awakens.
cancer.
It spreads
They
like
marketed
wildfire.
to children. They tuned the chemistry to make the addiction hit harder and faster. They took something ancient and communal and engineered it to be as destructive and as profitable as possible. A shaman placing herbs on hot stones and an executive signing off on marketing cigarettes to teenagers were working with the same plant. They had almost nothing else in common. That gap might be one of the widest moral chasms in human history. Both involve smoke. Nothing else is the same. So, when did humans start smoking? The honest answer is, we don't know exactly, and we probably never will. The hard evidence takes us back 12,000 years, and reasonable speculation goes much further. But the drive underneath it, the pull to alter your own mind, to share that experience, to use smoke as medicine, is almost certainly older than any object we've ever dug up. It may be as old as fire itself. It may be as old as the moment we became clever enough to look at a burning plant and think, last time that happened, I felt different. Let me do that again. That's not addiction, that's intelligence. It's the same spark that built everything else we are. And that's the thread that runs unbroken through 100,000 years. For all the things that separate you from your ancestors, the technology, the medicine, the endless content, there are a few thin lines of continuity that never break. Fire, smoke, breath. The oldest humans sat around fires and breathed the same smoky air you'd smell at a bonfire tonight. Some of them started paying attention to what it did to them. Then they started choosing it. Then they passed that choice down across 100,000 years until it reached you. So the next time you catch the smell of wood smoke drifting on a cold night, understand what you're standing inside of. It's older than every empire, older than every book, older than farming itself. You're doing the same thing humans have always done in the dark, around the fire. You're breathing. That's what this channel is for, pulling apart the strange ancient machinery still running quietly inside all of us. Subscribe, and we'll keep going back to the source.